Hey folks, Randy Newberg here with another episode of Leopold's Hunt Talk Radio. I am sitting in actually beautiful, warm Bozeman, Montana today. It's about 40 degrees. The snow is melting. Oh man, hardly ever like this in January. But today we're going to try something different. Damon Bungard from Orion Coolers has been on our podcast a couple times, and in the past, he and I have always got together face-to-face, swap hunting stories and talking about the adventures each of us had that year. And it seems that we really get kind of in the moment of a lot of arms moving and a lot of really excited talk about this and that. And we'd planned on doing that this year, but Damon's wife had a baby, and he's got to stay close to home, so he misses out on all the trade shows that he and I usually catch up on. So we're going to try do this via phone, and as quick as I hit this button, you're going to hear Damon on the other end, and he's going to be calling me from, I believe, Sparta, Tennessee, where he's at, and we're going to see if we have the technology to make this work. But before we do that, I want to thank the great folks at Leopold for all they do to support every one of our platforms, this podcast, all of our video content, our Hunt Talk forum. If we are doing something, you can rest assured that Leopold Optics has something to do with it. And you want to look for an American company that puts its money where its mouth is, that silently but in large volumes supports hunting, public land, conservation. I don't know if you're going to find anyone who does as good a job of that as Leopold Optics. And I'm just grateful for the relationship that I have with them. Also, sorry, Joe, I just clicked my headphone there. Also is, you know this from listening to the podcast, the great folks at Onyx Maps. They're the new layers they have, we used them this year, the roadless layer, the fire layer, the wilderness layer, amazing stuff. And I'm doing my applications right now, trying to figure out what tags we're going to apply for and where. And a lot of the states, we purposefully apply for tags that are a little bit harder to, or easier to draw, but harder to access, because we know we have a greater likelihood of getting the tag. And the way that we navigate that access issue is with our Onyx map system. And if you get the Onyx, the Hunt app out on Onyx, right now, go to onyxmaps.com and use promo code RANDY, R-A-N-D-Y, and you're going to get 20% off any purchase of their app products. Great company. Again, they've been supporting us. I don't know when they started. I think it was in 2009 or 10. I've been using their product ever since they started, and we've had a formal relationship not long after that. Amazing product. People always ask me, what piece of gear would you not leave home? And my Onyx system is probably the one piece of gear that I don't know how I could do it without it. So thanks to them. GoHunt.com. Again, as I talk about this time of year, we're in application season. They are the place. We're doing a bunch of videos. We already have one drafted out here about how the Wyoming draw system works, how their service and their software, their research website, how their filtering system helps you with all that Wyoming information. And we're going to be doing it for every state. Going to follow it up with Arizona, and I think then Utah, Montana. So we will have it all. And I know a lot of you have went out and looked at it. A lot of you are using it. Thanks to all of you who do, because again, they support a lot of what we do. They're just like us. They're some serious hunters. You look at some of the mule deer those guys take. Brady Miller down there at Go Hunt. I don't know if there's anybody who gets as serious about mule deer hunting as him. But he writes amazing strategy articles, application strategy articles. I read them start to finish because a lot of that stuff I already know from 25 years of doing this. But Brady always has some piece in there that helps me, even someone who's been doing it this long. And if I was just starting this process, Brady's articles would be worth their weight in gold to me. So again, using promo code RANDY, RANDY, if you want to sign up for this insider service that they have, you go to gohunt.com/insider and use the promo code. And they also have this really, really cool gear shop. When you use our promo code RANDY to sign up for the insider, you instantly get $50 of free credit, whatever you want to spend it on in that gear shop. So again, gohunt.com, promo code Randy, and you're going to have the best tool out there for draw odds, for research, for all the things you need when it's application season. And I saved Orion coolers for last because as quick as I turned the switch on here, Damon Bungard, who is the guy at Orion Coolers for everything we do, he was the guy who did a lot of the designing and engineering, but he's also a serious hunter, does a lot of this public land self-guided stuff that we talk about, and he's so sharing with all of his information. He reached out to us quite a while back, and we started using their coolers, and I know everybody who has bought one of their coolers at our recommendation. There's not one person who hasn't said, that is a serious cooler. OrionCoolers.com. Go there. You'll see all different sizes for all different applications and uses. But one thing that's constant is it's the quality construction. It is engineered and thought out by someone who does what we do, hunts, fishes, and has the needs that we have for a cooler. So OrionCoolers.com, all of these companies, thanks so much for supporting what we do. And with that, I'm going to try turn this on and see whether or not these devices are going to work or if I've messed up the technology system. So stand by, folks. I'm going to get Damon on the phone. Well, folks, I told you that Damon was going to be here, and he's been on, what, Damon, you've been on 2-3 podcasts with me?
Yeah, we did one, just a couple of us, you and I at a BHA rendezvous, and then 2 years ago, and then last year,
Clay
you
joined.
and I at the BHA, again, with Clay Hayes.
Yeah.
We did that one.
Yeah, and you and Clay were telling me about your Idaho backcountry bear hunt and your hepatology interests. Is it
right.
hep or herp? Herp.
Herpetology.
Yeah, hep. That would be liver. That's what I deal with.
Yeah.
I see you post this snake stuff out on your Facebook page, and I get the willies just looking at it on the computer.
Yeah.
Someday
I actually posted some recently. One of your listeners, Miss Hannah Jean, contacted me and said that I had heard you talking about your snakes and your great setups, and I can't believe you don't share more images of those. So there was like a week where I specifically responded to her and said, okay, well, you want to see some pet snakes? Here you go. So I posted up photos of some of the ones here in the house.
How many snakes you got in your house?
I got to count 9.
Wow. That's 9 more than will ever be in my house intentionally.
Yeah, that does not count. That does not count stuffed ones. That's just live ones.
Oh my goodness. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us, Damon, because I know how busy you are. You're a new father. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes.
You're running Orion Coolers. You're running YouTube channels and blogs and everything else. So for you to take the time is greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you. It's always good to talk. And yeah, little Barrett's downstairs. If Callahan is listening, the 50 cal nickname might be used a little bit in the Bungard house for little Barrett. So we'll see. He's already got all kind of nicknames: Little Bear, Shooter. We're gonna have fun with him.
Cool. So. Well, it's always an exciting time for sure. Even though you probably haven't had much sleep, it'll be worth it. Trust me. As someone whose son is 27 years old, is by far the greatest thing I've ever done with my time and energy. And
yeah, good.
I'm sure you'll feel.
You guys just had it. you guys had a good moose hunt this year, right?
Yeah, we did. That was so fun. We've put that up on our YouTube channel. My son Matthew had that moose tag here in Montana, and it was so fun. But then there was like all of a sudden the lights went out from a fun standpoint. And I was watching as we were carrying the last loads out of this beautiful place in Montana. And I see Matthew ahead of me. He's got the rack and the head, and I've got a load of stuff. And it just dawned on me like someone hit me with a hammer of, guess what, Randy? It's going to be another year before you guys get to do this again. And it was like, oh, I mean, I don't know if I could say it was an emotional time, but it was just a realization that, dang it, I'm not getting any older. His life is getting busier. He now lives out of state as of a few months ago, and I better take advantage and milk and enjoy every one of these to the greatest extent I can. So, but it was a good time. Yeah, man, it was a fun hunt. So
yeah, I did my annual hunt with my dad this year. We went to Wyoming, Western trip for antelope and mule deer. None of us ever hunted mule deer, so
yeah, I saw that. That looked like a fun trip.
Yeah, it was a fun trip. Yeah.
Did you drive or fly for that one?
Did drive.
Okay.
Did drive. Yeah, brought back 3 Orions full of processed antelope and mule deer for the freezer stock for the year. Nothing wrong with that. And everybody, all these guys who say antelope doesn't taste good, you guys are crazy.
They've lost
some of the best. Lost it. It is some of the best meat. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I get that question a lot because people know I'm such an antelope junkie. And I think a big part of it is how they take care of it in the field, how quickly they take care of it, how quickly they get it cooled down. And we've done multiple videos showing people this is how we take care of antelope. This is how we get them in the Orion cooler. This is how we put these frozen ice blocks or block ice, whatever we end up using. And we keep that thing sealed, and that meat is cool as cool gets. And oh man, I don't get it because I would say between me and my wife and my son, at least 50 antelope have come through our freezer. And out of those 50, we have never had one that was anything besides wonderful.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, again, they're killed when it's hot. And people just can't cool them down quick enough. The day that I shot mine, it was a nasty Wyoming day. It was snowing and sleeting, and just that like frozen clay mud that just turns your wheels. I have a photo of mud sticking out like 8 inches off the side of a tire. Like it's just pressed so much. It's sticking like it's a full ring of perfect mud pressed out an inch thick, and it's just sticking off the side of a tire. And I'm like, I call it the Wyoming mud flap photo.
One thing you quickly realize in Wyoming, Montana, well, a lot of these states is that when it gets wet, I've heard the same can be said of the South, that a little bit of rain on mud and clay really gets, I'm more worried about getting stuck in that stuff than I am getting stuck in the snow.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, in the South, if you get into some good red clay,
yeah,
then it gets bad. But it's not fun out there when it starts just a little bit. It's amazing how something's so dry, just a little bit of water just turns it to might as well be on ice.
Yeah, they call it gumbo for a reason.
Yeah,
but talking about your freezer, I was watching out on your YouTube channel, and you can put a shameless plug for your YouTube channel anytime you want, because we're always doing shameless plugs for our YouTube channel. But this year you did something that opened my eyes, not just for where you did it, but what you did. And it was a kayak, public land, Tennessee whitetail hunt from a kayak.
Yes.
People
Yes.
can watch that on your YouTube channel, but tell me how you came up with that idea.
Sure. So definite shameless plug. We have a new Orion Coolers YouTube channel. It's kind of taken a while, kind of behind the times, but now we have a dedicated our own Orion Coolers YouTube channel. We have tips and tricks on how to keep your cooler cold and how to lock it and do different things. And we're trying to share some of these adventures too. A couple years ago, I filmed the public land backpack hunt here in Tennessee on
Yep.
a multi-day hunt, and that was really cool. And I'm still getting good feedback about that. And there's a different hunting style. And so this fall, to kick off the season, decided to try to film a kayak access hunt. And obviously, the other half of our business is Jackson Kayak. Jackson Kayak and Orion Coolers, we're the same company, all making stuff here in Sparta, Tennessee. And we're all like very much living it, using our products. And I've enjoyed kayak hunting for a long time. And most people think kayak hunting and they think waterfowl.
Right.
And it's an incredible tool for waterfowl hunting. I think if you go to Sitka's blog, you'll find an old blog story I wrote about kayak hunting in Vermont in there. And a lot of the things that make our fishing kayaks great for fishing, which is getting to unpressured fish, quiet and shallow water, and those things carry over to hunting. And like I've had a lot of fun kayak hunting floats in Idaho, up around McCall in the North Payette. You can float that, jump shooting ducks, or whether it's dragging into back beaver ponds and stuff for opening day in Vermont. When the ducks get pressured, they kind of fall into some of these little back potholes, and if you're sitting in there waiting for them, you'll limit out pretty quick. But you can't get in there with bath boats. It's pretty easy with a kayak. So people think about kayak hunting like that, and there's some groups now popping up of kayak hunters, but there's not a lot of people using them for big game access.
Yeah.
And the reality is they're a great tool for that too. People have been hunting out of canoes and stuff for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure, that people may have been doing that before they knew how to, before the wheel was made. But, reality, there's good, whether it's in the swamps down in the south for hogs and deer, and getting back into some of the other areas and getting up on the high ground, or if it's just getting to a parcel of land that you can't access through private, but you can cross water and get there. But using a kayak has all these cool advantages over. One, it's super quiet. Animals, you'll find if you float rivers and you kayak fish a lot, you'll be amazed at how close you can get to game in the kayak, because it's not a normal predator behavior.
Yeah.
So they're not scared of things in the water generally. So they won't run, they won't spook. Like if they hear footsteps, it's not the same. Now, in most places, you can't legally hunt big game from the kayak. You have to be on the shore. But that's all your own state regs. But for getting in and out, it's a super way to get in and out without spooking game. It's a super way to get in and out quiet. And it's a super way to get in and out not leaving any scent at all. Most hardcore whitetail hunters in the East will always suggest, and in the West too, if you're going to a stand and you can use a creek, or you have to cross a stream or walk through a bog or whatever, do it. Because, that's the best way to not leave scent behind for a whitetail to spook on. So this year anyway, Tennessee it's got a number of public lottery draw zones that the state TWRA has these opportunities to put in for these lotteries, and it's totally free. If you have here in Tennessee, we have what's called the sportsman's license, and it lets you basically hunt and fish any legal season for whatever it is. It's like $180 all inclusive, and if you have that license or a couple other licenses, applying for these lotteries is free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's got to log in the computer system and do it.
Really?
So every year I look at like my free weekends, and I look at the lottery hunts in WMAs near where I live, and I'll apply just to see if I can get drawn for one and get to see a new area to hunt. I have a lot of public land around me, So I have the areas I like to hunt, but I'm always love looking for a new area to hunt and finding somewhere new and different. And this year I put in for one at the Hiawassee Wildlife Refuge, which is down near Chattanooga. It's about an hour and a half south of me.
Okay.
And so I put in for that for a weekend that I had free, and I got drawn. So I think I put in for 6 different lottery hunts this year, and I got drawn for 2. One was Hiawassee, and the other one was Catoosa Wildlife Management Area, which is kind of up between our factory and like Oak Ridge, north of I-40.
And so, so those are both whitetail deer hunts, and they have different lotteries for archery. There's archery weekends or hunts, and then there's muzzleloader, and then there's rifle. Okay.
And the cool thing about a lot of these is they're bonus deer and bonus zones.
Yeah, you said that in the video. Tell me what a bonus deer is in the East or in Tennessee, because I'm accustomed to the Western model where you buy a license and then you buy tags to go with it, and you're allowed one tag for a species. Right.
So here in Tennessee, it's a little different. When you get your license, you're allowed 2 bucks statewide, and then a number of does. 6 to 8 or more, depending on where you live in the state.
Wow.
So there's the state's broken up into game management units. I think there's 4, if I'm not quite sure, but for the one that I live in, I can kill 2 bucks, and I can kill, I think, 6 doe, 4 doe in archery, 1 in muzzleloader, and 1 in rifle. And that comes with the license. And then they have an app even. So like if I kill a buck or kill a doe within 24 hours, I can log into this app and report that harvest. Don't need to go to a game checking station, or I can do it all on the computer.
Wow.
So that's pretty handy.
So bonus deer is on top of those ones you just mentioned?
Exactly. So if I go to this bonus zone, this bonus hunt, like in the Hiawassee, I could have killed a buck, a doe, a turkey of either sex, which is kind of cool. If you're like eating wild turkey, just getting a shot at one. And then there's an archery hunt. So they do, again, archery hunts or muzzleloader or rifle. And I was drawn for opening weekend. What other cool thing about the Hiawassee hunt is that if you get drawn for it, your archery season actually starts a day before the regular season.
Okay.
So I got drawn for it. I've never hunted there, but there's some cool islands, and it's kind of part of this river system flowing in the Chattanooga, kind of a lake, more like a lake, but dammed up river system. And I was like, this is prime kayak hunting territory. This is, it's going to be 90 degrees. There's, you hear about, you got to get in scent free, do this, do that. I'll tell you what, if you're hunting in the South, if you can show me how you can walk 100 yards scent free, not be sweating your brains out with it dripping off your nose, then you've got something figured out that I haven't figured out. Because there's just, if you don't know how to play the wind when it's hot early season, you're done. Not having to, actually I can exert a lot less going in with a kayak, actually smell a lot less. But then, I wanted to get in some spots to use the kayak to get in scent free. I could play the wind for the zone that it was, just the natural, the way it's laid out. I could use the wind, the predominant winds better, to tend to blow west to east. Yeah. So I could use those to kind of loop around and get in some spots. So I said, hey, we have we call the JK Media House, kind of in-house film crew guys that use a lot on the kayak side, and said, hey, let's go try to see if we can't get a bow hunt opening weekend, something done on camera. And that's what we did. So it's on the YouTube channel. Cool. Ryan Cooler's kayak hunt. And I love things like that personally. I kind of talk about it in the intro of it's so much. There's a big group, Tennessee deer hunters, on Facebook, and I think like the most common question there is, what does it score? What does it score? It's so much score these days, and it turns a lot of people off to hunting that are getting into it when they see people on TV and online, and they're always holding up huge deer. And fact is, those deer just don't live everywhere. And I think for new hunters, and for me personally, I love that. Just maybe maybe I like to set different goals because I don't know, I like to feel good about myself. But generally, yeah, I like to feel good about my hunting. But whether it's a goal of getting something with in a new spot on a holiday, that's one of my big ones. Is I've only killed one buck on a Thanksgiving morning, and I don't care how big that buck. If you kill a buck on Thanksgiving morning, you feel good about it.
Yeah.
Or I've never killed a Christmas Day buck. Those like little goals, or whether it's your first archery deer, and it doesn't need to be a big buck, whether it's a doe or that's a big moment in your life. Your first archery deer, or whether it's okay, now I got one with a compound. Can I do it with a trad bow?
Yeah.
All those little subtle sub goals. So, it came to this one. I was like, yeah, the goal is, can I do this on film? Can we get in here, two guys sweating at 90 degrees? From a kayak, can we get it done on film? And we were able to pull it off. So,
and you did. And the reason I would encourage people, especially Westerners, to watch it is, one, it's unique and interesting because it changes the Western kind of stereotype of what Eastern hunting is, for one thing. But two, as I was watching that, over on the other side of my screen, I instantly pulled up my Onyx maps, and I was looking at, in Montana, the Bighorn River, the Tongue River, the Powder River, the Milk River, and then I dropped down to Wyoming. I'm looking at the North Platte and where the Powder and the Bighorn are in Wyoming, and my mind is thinking, there's got to be some really good places to access Western hunting ground that is pretty much landlocked by any access means other than a river. So
absolutely.
I almost called you and said, Damon, when are we going to do this out west? Because
you name the dates, I'll bring the kayaks. I know a guy.
I think we should think about something like that. And yeah. I know where you did it in the East it's probably, I don't want to say more, but it might have greater appeal to people in the East because access is more challenging in the East. But I look at some of the places in the West that I know are fantastic hunting, and I just can't get to them. But you know what? They go right through this little corner of state land or BLM land. And if I could get on there, I could go hunt another 3 sections adjacent to that. And
absolutely, there's a lot of places where you got a parcel that's locked in by private all the way around it, but they don't own that water. And if you can put in a public ramp, float somewhere, know your spot to get out and beach and get up and get right into a good zone. I know guys that are doing that for shed hunting. Using a kayak.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. To get in after the season, if they know good wintering grounds where they're going to be dropping. It's a tool for sure. It's a good tool to have in your toolbox.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely high on my list, but I got a question for you. I grew up in northern Minnesota and everybody had a couple canoes. I've never been in a kayak. Are you going to be having to dredge me off the bottom of the river if I get in a kayak?
No, we won't. All of our fishing kayaks they're made for stand-up fishing and sight fishing, so super stable. Certain models are better suited to the needs and requirements of a big game hunter, which is going to be obviously, if you're successful, a huge capacity and weight swing in the boat. Mm-hmm. So being able to trim that kayak back right, you'll see in the kayak hunt, I'm going in, I got my pack, my bow, a stand, then myself, and then coming out, I have to then carry the deer, and all of that gear back with it. So getting that boat to still paddle right and be worthy, is and not lose all of your stuff, including your harvests in the water on the way out, is important. So there's definitely certain models better suited than others. But and hey, I want emails from listeners. I've been working. I really want to do just a pure big game hunting kayak. So just give me some good reasons.
Okay. So if we have listeners who are interested in a big game kayak, you want them to reach out to you?
Absolutely. I want to hear what they want.
How would they reach out to you? They just go to the Orion or Jackson Kayak website?
They could go there, Damon at jacksonkayak.com, DAMON at jacksonkayak.com, or DAMON at orioncoolers.com.
So
always available.
So you're saying that if they reach out to you, you'll build some prototypes and we'll go test them.
Hey, where there's a will, there's a way, and it's something that, again, we have some models that I've designed already or that we've designed already that are purposely, we did the Realtree Kilroy, which was a waterfowl hunting model that came with a blind and different covers. And we have another one, the Kilroy DT, that's very well suited for big game hunting. And that's not by accident. That's because I wanted things to do what I like to do. But it's fun being able to, make products to do what you want them to do.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you're a handy engineering type like you are. See, I'm an accountant. So I need guys like you to come up with really good products. Like when you first approached me about your coolers, I'm like, I've used a million different coolers. And then I got to talking to this guy, Damon. I'm like, man, this guy's serious about hunting. He's been to Newfoundland, Alaska. He does all this traveling hunting. Maybe I should listen to him. And here we are, however many years later. I'm like a convert to the Church of Orion Coolers. So it's because of engineering minds that people like myself are able to solve their problems. Not that we've done the solving. We just go and buy the good stuff and it gets solved that way. But
what is that? There's like a funny engineering T-shirt, and I like engineering jokes because I like making fun of myself. But I think it says something like, "I'm an engineer solving problems you didn't know you had in ways you wouldn't understand." I'm sure you get CPA jokes.
Yeah, there are, but none of our CPA jokes really make any sense to anybody outside of the CPA world. So, but when you brought up a term, I didn't quite catch it. TWRA, is that what you said?
Yeah, Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
Oh, okay. So it's like your game and
basically
fish.
Tennessee Game and Fish. Yeah.
Okay. And so in the East, I mean, I've got a lot of experience in the upper Midwest growing up in Minnesota, and the DNR is the land agency, it's the fish and game agency, it's the timber and resource agency, all under one umbrella. In the East and Southeast, are you guys all one, or are your game and fish agencies separated?
I think they're more separated, and it varies by state. But you have you have federal like Fish and Wildlife taking care of national forest stuff, which we still have.
Right. People don't know how much national forest you guys have in Tennessee. You guys got a lot of federal forests there.
We do again because we have Great Smoky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
Along the southeast side of the state, along that North Carolina and Georgia border. So that's all then federally managed, and then a lot of state land. To be honest, I should be more educated on exactly all the ins and outs, but I can't keep track. I have some state contacts I try to talk to about. We try to do different initiatives, and and now that we have BHA Southeast, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, we now have set up a Southeast group, and state chapters are starting to spin off as more and more people in the East start focusing on public land issues and getting access and looking at new ways to hunt. So
this kayak hunt you did, that reservoir, was it a reservoir or a man-made lake, or was it a natural lake?
Yeah, it's basically a reservoir. It's technically the Tennessee River, I guess, coming in there, but it's basically dammed up at Chickamauga Dam.
And it is the shoreline or this wildlife? Was it a wildlife management area?
Yeah, WMA we call them.
Okay, is that managed by Bureau of Reclamation like a lot of them are out west, or is that by your Tennessee Wildlife Resources?
But as far as I know, it's by Tennessee.
Okay.
Wildlife Resources.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, we have different parts of the state. We have a lot of, because of the old Tennessee Valley Authority and that old federal program, there's a lot of Corps of Engineers.
Yep.
Waterways that are managed in the state because of all the dam systems, legacy dam systems. So I don't know how they play into what's down there. It gets over my head sometimes. I just say, hey, I look on Onyx Hunt.
I'm going hunting.
I'm good.
That's kind of how I do it too. You brought up a couple things that I want to go quickly touch on. I had the pleasure in March when I was down in Tennessee for Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation board meetings. We had a pint night, or BHA, your Southeast chapter, had a pint night when I was down there. And I had no idea there were that many, avid hunters, that many people interested in food, procuring food from public land, and that many people interested in the public land advocacy issue. Because you just don't think of the Southeast, of Tennessee or other places, as being big into the public access thing. I was surprised.
And the fact is that a lot of people are just getting introduced to the opportunities from that. And people have an interest in not only gaining places to hunt, but then learning styles to hunt out west, just finding new ways to have an adventure. I have, back to that engineering, solving problems you didn't have and ways you didn't understand, or whatever the saying was. I have my engineering public land view that I'll try to describe. I'll try to describe algebra on the radio.
You go ahead. I'm sure you'll do a better job of it than I would.
Yeah. So I look at, and I've traveled. I've been very fortunate in my life. Growing up a military dependent, traveling all over the world. Kayaking has taken me places where I've learned, a lot about river access issues and water access issues. Fly fishing encounters this, and hunting too. And one of it, I like BHA because it's so focused on, hey, we all have this same resource that we like to use, no matter what you're doing with it. We all need it. But the fact is, if I draw a circle around the United States of America, that equals land, and that equals a constant number. So until we either are invaded by Canada or Mexico, or vice versa, our circle, our constant number is the same. Land is not being invented. That is a fixed number.
Yep.
So let's say that number is 100 for ease of our algebra.
For the accountants who like simple math.
Yeah, X equals 100.
Yeah.
So that means, what makes up that 100? Ultimately, if you break down all of that land, it's either public land or it's private land. It's one of the two.
Yep.
And it's an independent, and then therefore it's a dependent equation. It's a fixed number. So what goes up must come down. So that means 50 plus 50, it's a balance, equals 100. But if one becomes 70, the other becomes 30. That's the rule.
Got it.
Same thing. So knowing that, well, if it's all public or private, if you look at what's driving private land, well, population's driving private land. And until, again, we're either invaded by Mexico or Canada, and our population has a massive die-off because of those shocks to our system, the number of people in the United States is only going up.
Yep.
So that means if that number goes up, population goes up, that means private land goes up. That means inherently public land goes down.
Yeah.
And if I look at things at a simple level like that, well, that's not good.
Not for hunting, not for conservation.
As far as for conservation and for hunting. And when I sit back and look at the number one reasons I hear from people of, I don't hunt anymore because I don't have anywhere to hunt anymore. Well, that's part of that private land function. As that goes up, their opportunities for publicly hunting on that land go down. And unfortunately, and to me, until we start realizing the initiatives like some will have out west for landowner tags and ways in the East and elsewhere that there's incentive for private land to become huntable, our hunting numbers will continue to decline. The people speaking up for conservation and for hunting will continue to decline because they can no longer do it. They can't relate to it. So it becomes out of sight, out of mind kind of impact. So I think it's excellent for people in the East to start looking at this. It is a national issue. It does affect me too. By the way, we happen to have wonderful, great public land hunting opportunities in the East. When you start looking at the national forests, state forests, the state WMAs, all the opportunities that exist, and we're all in it together. So the focus on, hey, we all know we need these great large tracts of western and public land for habitat preservation and everything like that. But in the East, we're far more populated. We've been populated a lot longer. So it's a different landscape, you could say, literally, but also figuratively. And there has to be more conscious efforts, I think, made to set aside land for public use, find creative ways to incentivize private landowners to allow hunting for hunting and to survive. And there are opportunities out there. My father, when he retired from the Army, became county engineer in Chatham County, Georgia, and was the director or county engineer. So as part of the people that are involved in development will understand this, but there's something called wetlands mitigation. And if you say the county builds a road and it impacts so many acres of wetland, they by law must then conserve that same amount of impacted wetland. Now, instead of doing that with a little bit here, okay, we'll trade a little bit here for a little bit there, they'll buy up all these credits, what's called a wetland like mitigation bank. And then they'll buy a large section of land back from a private landowner and return it to wetland status. So like in Savannah and Chatham County, we did that. And Dad put in, fishing lakes, kayak trail. It's public. And after he retired, it became Bungard County Park.
Cool.
So when I look at things like that, with a little more forethought and planning at state legislative level and even federal, where are opportunities like that where we can create some opportunities for setting aside land and for people to get out and enjoy the outdoors. It just takes a little bit of forethought. And I think in the big picture, the more we start looking at, okay, we got all these downward pressures on public land. They're coming. There's no stopping it. And unless everybody suddenly becomes sterile next week. As a new father, I look at it, I'm like, hey, I just had a kid. I just added, I have my house. He's going to have a house one day. That's how it works. So as the human population goes up, the pressure on public's going to always be there. And whether that's just where you're going to live, let alone the resources challenges that we're also all facing now. as people look at these federal lands and what can we tap out of them and what's the impact. These are all real issues, and the more people that I think can gain a perspective and can value it will help bring better solutions.
Yeah. And, I spend most of my time in that kind of way that you've created the fork or the split of the pie of public-private. Most people know I'm very involved on the public side with keeping existing access there and trying to create new access to public lands that might currently be inaccessible. But the huge opportunity in your part of the world, and even to some degree getting that way in the West, is how do we think and work and build relationships and programs that provide access so the public can get on or hunt or fish some of these private lands, because there are landowners out there who are interested in being part of that solution. And I think if there's one thing, the provincial mindset of the West, which I'm raise my hand and say I'm guilty of this, is we think about the value of big tracts of land in the West, like you mentioned, and there definitely are things we fight for. But if we want to, and this is kind of me speaking as a Westerner, if we want people in the Midwest and the Southeast and the East to take more interest in our quote-unquote cause of public land advocacy, we need to find ways to connect them. And when I say connect them, I mean give them access to places where they can go and do some of these things. And it's not necessarily practical to expect that the guy from Tennessee is going to fly or drive to Colorado. We need these kind of places in Tennessee or Georgia or Pennsylvania or Maine or Michigan or wherever it is, because that keeps the connection to public lands and the value public lands and public access provide. It keeps it relevant and tangible to other people, to all people, whether you live right out where I do, where there's millions of acres, or you live someplace where there's 1,000 acres is considered huge. All of that is important. And if we look at total hunter numbers east of the Mississippi, I mean, you guys have way more hunters in the Midwest and the Northeast and in the Southeast than we do in the West. And I think we can all agree that a larger hunting community, hopefully maintaining our percentage of the total population, is a good thing. I hear some people say, I wish I was the only hunter in the world. Well, you might wish that the morning when you walk up to your glassing location or walk into your tree stand and you run into another hunter. I can understand that sentiment at that time. But when you look
if you're the only one in the world, hope you own that world.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. We don't want to be a small camp when we're trying to maintain relevance, when we're trying to convince society that we're making a big contribution. And for me, all of this is tied together with access. You said that you kind of made it an anecdotal observation that most of the people you talk to, the reason they quit hunting is they ran out of places or lost places to hunt. That's not just your observation, Damon. There are multiple studies out there that say the number one reason.
Back that right up.
Yeah, why they don't hunt, why they quit hunting, and why they never got into hunting is just the number one reason always provided is lack of places to hunt. So it's everybody's issue. And that's why I guess it shows a little bit of my narrow mindset, the fact that I was so surprised and overwhelmed at that pint night that we did in Nashville, that many people showed up. I guess that's a reflection of my Western mindset to think, there'll be like 4 people here.
Right. No, it's again, people, they have an interest. We're going to do, I think, another BHA pint night in Nashville at the end of this month. Um, we've had them now in Alabama and Atlanta and Chattanooga, and people are eager. I was this morning emailing a local park manager. There's a talk of doing a kind of a BHA group backpack, and just taking a group out just to show techniques, show gear.
Yeah.
Take them out. We'll go out, hike a trail, camp by a stream, talk about the challenges people maybe are interested in but don't know how to deal with, how to filter water, how to choose a campsite, how to read game sign in dense, forested cover, how to scout, do like a real. It's great to read it all on Facebook, but I'm more rather go out and do it with somebody.
Yep.
and help them get past those barriers, perceived or real, of what it takes to hunt. The fact is, a lot of Appalachian country people say, "Oh, the mountains in the east are nothing." Well, it's some really, really thick, tough country that's public land in the east.
Yeah.
And it's just flat out not only is it not hunted, it's not, people just aren't there.
Yeah. You proved that.
And if
where was it in Tennessee when you did that backcountry deer hunt with your muzzleloader? Was that Tennessee also?
It was.
Okay.
That was Tennessee. Yeah.
I mean, when you and I were talking about that, I can't remember what show we were at. We were visiting, and you said something that you say often, and every time you say it, it's kind of a wake-up call to me, is that the definition or the idea of backcountry is very subjective. And
extremely. Yeah.
That is, whenever you say that, it's like, yeah, Randy, guess what? What's backcountry to you is different than someone else. What's backcountry to me living in Southwest Montana is way different than what's backcountry to the guy in Alaska or the Northwest Territories. And what's different as backcountry in Tennessee is different than what it is to me.
Absolutely. And, I grew up playing outside a lot, like a lot of people in the outdoors did. And I remember distinctly, when I got to a new part of the, the land behind the house, when I crossed that creek, or, when I got across the power line. Like those were like milestone moments, as a kid, just looking for turtles or snakes or just whatever, going on a squirrel hunt, and I got to the hills, 3 hills over this time, and as a kid, that's the backcountry.
Yeah.
And when I first started doing like trips to Alaska, to get away, starting obviously we want to get in the back. Really away in Alaska, people are getting on planes and different things like that. But the fact is, in Alaska, even at like crowded fishing places, if you're willing to just walk usually a half mile or a mile, you're alone.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the backcountry from a fishing standpoint, even in crowded places. And so people in the East, it's there's certainly large uninhabited tracts of land. But there's also just, that's the spots that I mainly go where I've never encountered a human. I'm never more than a mile and a half from a road. So it's just
That's
steep.
amazing.
It's just, you just can't get in and out without, knowing how to cross creeks and knowing how to be willing to hike up and down 1,000 feet. So you get in and out. So
that
a lot of this.
That whitetail episode that you did, I saw it on Sportsman's channel a couple times. Is that backcountry backpack whitetail episode you did? Is that out on your YouTube channel also?
It is. Yep, it is now available on the YouTube channel as well. And you can do Tennessee backpack hunt.
I would encourage anybody, whether you're no matter where you live, to go and watch that, because it's going to change people's mindsets about, if you live in the East, I think it'll change people's mindsets about, the public lands are just overrun and kind of the wildlife wasteland. If you live in the West, I think you look at it and say, whoa, that's cool. I'd like to go do that someday.
Yeah, I've gotten so many good comments back of people, oh, that's how we hunt in West Virginia, or how we hunt in the Adirondacks, and nobody ever has shown that before. There's no tree stand footage. I'm on the ground, calling in bucks the whole time. So a lot of movement. I'm an active hunter. So it's just a different style, but I think you'll find there's more people in Southeast that want to do that. Recently, somebody on the BHA Southeast Facebook group posted, and said a thank you. They inspired by it and went and they killed a public land deer with a backpack. And that's what more do you need? I mean, that's action reaction. I love it. I mean, it's been humbling. It's been really nice to be able to kind of try to share some of these stories. And believe me, trying to film it's not. I was blown away. I mean, I hunted in there. We did filmed that whitetail hunt, opening a muzzleloader last year. And everything you see was straight up. There was nothing reshot. It was all filmed real time, real everything. And I hunted in there before the baby came this year, probably 20 times. And I shot one buck. And the fact that we got 2 back-to-back, that there's just everything came together.
Yeah.
But
that's all right though. That makes up for the 20 days when you go and hunt that hard and you don't get one.
Man, I mean, I'm talking hard hunting days, like parking the car at 3 a.m. and starting hiking. That I usually start hiking around 3, and I'll get to where I like to be about 5:30.
Wow, that's 2.5 hour hike. I would say most places in the West that I elk hunt, I don't do a 2.5 hour hike. I might do an hour to hour and 40 minutes is usually what I try to keep it at. 2.5 hours. That's some serious. That's some serious hiking and going just to get to where you want to hunt.
Right, and there's some pauses in there to try to not sweat so much, but that's pretty much it's hard. You're going up and down steep country. You're going to be working. So, I do this big loop. I do this huge loop that brings me down and up this other face, and I traverse a steep face so I can get where I have the thermals in my favor. I could do that hike in an hour if I wanted to.
Right.
But I don't, so I can get my wind right.
A lot of this stuff that we're talking about is somewhat subjective. There are some just absolute realities, and I don't know if I always give the right answers when people ask me questions of just factual things about what equipment do you use, logistics, how do you do this, how do you do that. You probably fly more for hunting than I do, because I think about all the places I've read stories of you going from Alaska to Canada to the West to all over the place.
Newfoundland.
As someone in the East or in the Southeast, Midwest, whatever, you must encounter all kinds of logistics and hurdles in your travel that I would bet you could answer these questions that I get better than I can, because most of us in the West will drive because it's only 400 miles or 600 miles.
Yeah, you kind of settle into your routine of what you know, and you get really good at it. When I lived in Vermont, before moving closer to our factories in Tennessee, I definitely flew more. But even then, I still traveled. I flew to Alaska a lot from Vermont. I'd hunt in Quebec. Now that I moved to Tennessee, it's definitely more central. I can get, it's a 20-hour, 24-hour drive to Colorado, Wyoming-ish. Mm-hmm. It's a 20-hour drive to Vermont. It's a 20-hour drive if I want to go to Key West, Florida, and go fly fish. So now that I have, wife, dogs, and a little more central, I do drive more, but I still fly a lot. Last year I drove to Newfoundland for the moose hunt, and that was a weighing factors of it's a 30-hour drive plus an overnight ferry. But when you know you're going to be dealing with 500 pounds of meat and 2 large trophies,
Yeah.
you know, the logistics of getting that meat back through international borders and trophies back and all of that, if you have the time, you know, it's a lot easier to manage driving. And I enjoy personally a long, good road trip with a hunting buddy. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
We used to drive, I did a 30-hour drive from Vermont and up into Ontario to go track whitetails in the snow. And then like you want to go to Alaska, you're pretty much, you're getting on a plane unless you have a month to get there and back. So, and getting that back. So yeah, I've dealt with, the first Orion prototype I brought on a caribou hunt up in the Brooks Range. The first pre-production one out of the mold, and flew. I always try to arrange flights with just one stop, and I could usually go like Vermont, Burlington, Chicago, Anchorage, or I've gone Nashville, Chicago, Anchorage, one stop Chicago, get to Anchorage, and I kind of have my routine that I've kind of gotten down through fishing trips of, by the time I land in the morning, by 3 I can be at Fred Meyer's, have all my gear, and be on the road out of Anchorage. But, the logistics of getting, in that case, we shipped back, 350 pounds of moose meat. And then our racks, we had them dealt with by a taxidermist there and created and shipped back. Those are all realities you have to deal with. Versus, the trip this year to Wyoming, Dad, for antelope and mule deer was, okay, we're going to, I know a processor there. We drive that out. That's a 2-day drive, 2.5-day drive. And then we're there. We can get all of our meat back ourselves, fully processed, no work on the back end, bring our trophies back ourselves if we're going to do skull mounts. And it's all of those different things. Until you've done it, it can be, kind of daunting.
Yeah.
Kind of either a real or a perceived obstacle. And I've been trying a lot to help people. These are my suggestions. There's a new East Meets West Facebook hunting group.
What
guys in
what
the
is
East.
What is it called, Damon? East Meet West?
East to West.
Oh, East to West.
East to West.
Okay.
Yeah, East to West hunting group. East Meets West hunting group on Facebook.
Okay.
I could have gotten it wrong, but it just started up, just recently. And guys asking questions. How do I fly with a gun? If I'm gonna, do you prefer to drive or fly, and why? And these are all, real challenges, real logistical hurdles that people have. And the more people that can understand these are the options and the pros and cons can make the best decision for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a function of time and money and all those things.
Right.
And what you plan to do with the meat, how are you gonna have it? I love it when I get questioned all the time by people in the East. Hey, I've got an elk hunt in Wyoming next year. How much cooler do I need? And it's one of those. Well, first define an elk. There's a
right.
Are you gonna, what are the odds you're going to shoot a calf or a cow or a bull, which in many places are all an option. Are you going to bring back, quartered? Are you going to try to haul and move a quartered animal, deboned animal, or a processed animal? And the answer is different,
right,
for all of those things. If you're going to get that elk down, but you got an outfitter who's going to then pack it out for you on horses and bring it to a processor, and your only issue is I'm going to bring home, how many hundreds of pounds of processed elk. Well, that's a different answer than, hey, I'm going to be camping and I got to get my elk back to camp on my back, and then I got to store it and hang it and then debone it, and I don't have time to process it while I'm there, so I got to drive all the deboned meat in Orion's back on ice. That's a whole different scenario.
Yeah. And that's,
so you got to,
when people ask me those questions, it usually comes down to, are you planning to fly or are you planning to drive? Because if you're going to fly, there's a whole different level of logistics than if you're planning the other. And We've done quite a few videos on it. We've done videos about flying with a firearm, and one thing I've found from all the feedback is, as much as this, I normally fly Delta Airlines out of Bozeman. I can get anywhere in a hurry through Delta, and they have a certain policy, and the TSA here in Bozeman obviously has a different policy than what some others have, because here when I check in at the airport in Montana, they say you have to have your ammunition in a factory box, and the box goes in your locked case. The ammo goes in the lock case with the rifle. And so I said that on the video, and oh my goodness, everyone's like, no, that's how you go to jail. If you put your ammo in with the rifle, you're in trouble. It's got to be separate from the rifle. So what that is...
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. What's that pointed out to me is call your airline, call TSA, get the answers from your airport or wherever. Don't show up there with making some assumptions, because I flew out of Wichita, Kansas one time, and when I flew there out of Bozeman, I had hand loads with me in just a box, in a sleeve, not a factory ammo box. Yeah. Well, when I tried to fly home, they confiscated all my ammo. They're like, you can't fly with that. I'm like, what do you mean? I flew here with it. They're like, you're not flying home. You're not getting on an airplane here in Kansas with that. So there's just a lot of those things, like flying home from Alaska, getting whether it's a caribou or a moose or whatever. A lot of people are like, well, I'll just check those in as luggage at the airport. No, read the fine print. That's going to create a challenge for you. Don't make all these assumptions that you're going to be able to do X or Y or Z, because you might get there and find out that the answer is, sorry, you can't do X or Y or Z.
Right. I've found, I started flying meat a lot when I lived in Vermont. I'd fly down to Georgia to my parents to hog hunt, and then I'd fly back back to Vermont, wild hog. And, learning what I can carry on versus check. And general rule is, if you're going to fly meat, it should be frozen solid. I've had soft meat questioned.
Yep.
Never confiscated. And I always suggest people be nice. Always be nice. Never tell the agent they don't know what they're talking about, because you're not going to win that battle. Being nice goes a long way. In fact, on my 2 years ago, I had my first antelope hunt. I didn't get one with my archery tag, and I found out I could fly back for like $200 round trip. I had enough points for a rental car, so I went back during rifle, shot an antelope, little buck, first one. I'm like, let's find out about this whole meat story, and you're very much right. But so I flew out one Orion 45 and empty on the way out, and then coming back, I put the head, the skull in there, and all the meat in the same one, and I get it to the counter, and flying Southwest, which I fly out of here a lot because I fly out of Nashville. I can get a lot of places direct. And the gate agent, I was super nice, and I was like, okay, I have a rifle. Here's the rifle. Here's the federal, declaration. Goes in the case, boom. Oh, and I have this cooler. She goes, oh, that's a really cool cooler. And I was like, oh, thanks. And I was like, yeah, we make these. Oh, that's neat. And she said, oh, just go load it over there. I was like, you don't want to weigh it? No, go ahead. And she didn't weigh it. I would have been overweight. I would have had to pay the overweight fee. But because I was nice and she thought the cooler was cool, I gotta fly all that meat home for normal free bag.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I always recommend people understand and look at the weight limit requirements. Most coach flights, you get 50 pounds.
Yep.
But you got to pay for both bags. Most first class flights, you get 70 pounds and they're free.
Yep.
And sometimes it's worth doing that cost comparison, and it's worth the bump to first class. A, for the less hassle involved in the free drinks, but B, because it's a wash on cost. I've done that numerous times. Southwest has a really nice, it's $99 for up to 100 pounds. So when you start weighing out the difference of a UPS overnight shipment or FedEx, versus paying that $99 for 100 pounds. And for a lot of Western game processed, you can get that.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Even if you got to donate, maybe you got to donate 20 pounds or whatever, but for most mule deer, antelope stuff, you're going to be well under that.
I have found that, and this is because in the West we get to use Alaska Airlines a lot. I fly Alaska, not just to Alaska, but to other places. Those folks at Alaska Airlines, they are well versed in huge amounts of baggage, overweight baggage, lots of baggage. When we show up to fly to our bear hunts in Alaska, it looks like we're running away from home. And if I showed up at the United counter with all that stuff, they'd give me the stink eye. I show up at the Alaska counter and they're like, "Hey, yeah, where are you going? What are you fishing? You hunting? What are you doing?" And it's awesome. Also less expensive. Each airline has very big pricing differences. Like you were talking about Southwest policy. Alaska's policy, it's crazy how cheap we can check stuff and fly it there. It's way easier for us to show up with all of this gear, check it, and fly it on the flight than it is to ship it up there in advance.
Oh, yeah. Even people that want to shop for Orions, we don't often ship to Alaska because the shipping is cost prohibitive. But if they're going to be visiting the lower 48, or they have friends that are coming or whatever, family, we'll ship it there and then they get it when they get it. And once they know that option's there, that's the better way to go. Other things I often do is, a lot of this information is it's not so much by airline, it's by TSA.
Yep.
And the information's on their website. So I've flown, I will go to the TSA website and I will print their requirements to have on me, because you might get a rookie agent or somebody out to just having a bad day and make yours worse too. And I've literally pulled the paper out and shown them, in particular, for the fly fishermen listening, flying flies. I used to fly a lot for fly fishing. And I was going to Alaska and I always want to carry on my flies, because I was like, hey, if luggage gets lost and I got to lose a day, I can at least go fish, kill past that time waiting on bags. And I'd had that questioned, and I'd pull out that paper and say, hey, it says right here to fly with your flies as carry-on, because they get worked up over the hooks, but the TSA site says to fly it as carry-on. Wow. So I've done that challenge, and they always wave you on. Again, it's be nice and it's subject to the airport you're at, but it never hurts to have what TSA says and to understand what TSA says from their own website on your person.
Yeah. Well, for us,
some of that stuff.
It's we're not allowed to carry lithium-ion batteries in our check bags. We got to carry them on, and if anyone sees us traveling, they always see us with our Mystery Ranch packs. Those packs are just about full of batteries, and people will walk up. Sometimes one of the check agents or someone will grab your pack and they're like, "What is in here?" Oh, about 75 pounds of batteries.
Right.
If we had those batteries in our check bag, we'd be paying a lot more in our check bags. We'd be paying a lot more in luggage fees. Instead, we carry them on, and we don't end up with that. But that's unique to us. I'm sure. I doubt many other people carry 50, 75 pounds of batteries with them.
No, that's a lot of batteries. I found that when I flew a lot, I kind of developed my packing routine. I knew when I go to Alaska on big fly fishing trips, and I used to, my first trip was 10 days, then I did a 4-week trip, then I did a 5-week trip all on my own. And I got to where, I'd fly 3 bags. I'd fly 1 duffel bag that had all my clothes, my tent, my sleeping bag, my pots, stove, cooking stuff, all of that in 1 large duffel.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd fly a gun case that had, shotgun, ammo, some odds and ends for bear protection. And then I flew like a Watermaster, a raft, a 50-pound raft with oars and a life jacket in the other bag. And that was that would last me. I could deal with that for 5 weeks. That's all I needed.
Wow, 5 weeks.
I mean, I got some food, but
Yeah.
once I got there, but that on my carry-on backpack, which I would then put my camera gear in, and carry all my flies and my fly rods. But the more you fly, and I keep a detailed packing list for every hunt that I go on, whether it's a driving trip, whether it's a flying trip, an Excel file, this hunt, this month, this year. Here's the weather conditions I expect. Here's what I brought.
Wow. You are an engineer.
That helps me repack quickly. Well, you don't have a lot of time. It helps me repack quick the next time.
Yeah.
Remember what worked and what didn't. And you'll learn what you need and what you don't need. You'll learn that backpacking and rock climbing. You'll learn fast to fit in your pack only what you're going to use. And the same thing when you're flying. And it also helped actually once with a huge insurance claim when I flipped a raft and lost quite a bit of expensive gear. I was able to claim it all because I had that packing form.
Oh, yeah. Of what was there.
They said that it was the best insurance claim they'd ever received, the most detailed.
Well, when I fly, there's two other things that I'm always worried about. One, I'm not that worried about myself, but I know a lot of other hunters are. So I should say one I'm worried about and one others are, and it is two issues. One is dry ice. Just about every airline wants to know if you have dry ice in your coolers. And the other is a logistic challenge. Some of the places we fly to is, butane or fast gas or whatever you want to call that you use for your backpack stove. In Alaska, that's always a challenge because sometimes we fly into really, really little places that you don't expect that you're going to go down to the big box chain sporting goods store and buy a can of fast gas. And you gotta get that figured out before you get on the plane and figure out where you're going to get it when you get there.
Very much. Fuel is a huge one. And, the dry ice, most airlines want you to have under a certain amount of pounds in the cooler. I rarely, with the efficiency of the coolers nowadays, I rarely use dry ice.
Yeah, me too.
I would much rather just pack a cooler very densely full of frozen meat. Not always available to do that. But I'll occasionally get dry ice if it's easy. But even that can be hard to find sometimes. You have to just know ahead of time where you can get it. Luckily, Alaska, you can get it at the grocery store, but not other places like you can. And the fuel thing, you have to, whether it's, I'll often carry some stoves that just burn wood. There's some backpack-like stoves that you can fuel with wood. And if I'm on a backcountry hunt, let's say I have 2 canisters, I'll try to cook as much as I can with wood when I can and save the fuel canisters for when it's rainy and nasty. But the flying with fuel canisters, particularly, and even bear spray, when you're looking at getting on little float planes, what is the pilot, if it's chopper or whether it's a float plane or a Super Cub, can you get it on an exterior container? And if you can't, you're not going to be bringing that with you. If that's your only bear protection, well, guess what? You're going to be just dealing without it. And that's what has happened to me. But if you're insistent on having something for peace of mind or for, whatever you need for bear protection, it's be prepared. Either you can fly a pistol or a shotgun. A lot easier you can fly bear spray.
Yeah, if you want to get free bear spray, go to the Bozeman Airport or the Missoula Airport or the Jackson or Cody airports, and just go to where the check-in line is. All of those airports have a big dumpster with a big sign. If you brought bear spray, leave it here. And there's always an arrow going into the dumpster. And the number of times I've seen people dumpster diving for brand new cans of bear spray, it's crazy. They'll go all the way back out.
I always leave mine in the rental car area. I just set it right there on a curb or something. I just always leave it right there.
Someone will get it.
Yeah, what I always want to know though is why aren't there common use recycling of bear spray, things like that. Maybe
I've
that's my
asked,
return plan. I'm gonna do a check-in, check-out system.
I
A
have
little
asked
scale to
some of
make sure it's all full.
Mhm.
You know, and yeah, because there's so much wasted bear spray in airports and rental car stations in those states for sure.
Yeah, I've asked some of the bear spray manufacturers, and they said that there's liability concerns of whether or not they, someone used this or they didn't handle it properly. I wonder, is it there's mostly concerns about the number of unit sales would go down.
Yeah, that's another factor they're just leaving out conveniently.
But maybe you do have a retirement strategy there, Damon. It'll be like the Coca-Cola machine, but it'll be
That's right.
UDAP or whatever you want for bear spray.
Yeah, and you get a credit when you return it back. And again, you can put a scale there where it shows it's full, same as when it's left.
Yeah.
But
that'd be funny. Obviously, you've done this a lot, and I hope that some of our listeners who are thinking of doing it and maybe haven't done it because of some of these logistics. I hope we're covering some of those. But as you've been talking, I am writing down this list of YouTube videos that we need to make. So
yeah,
I'm going to have to send you some sort of royalty fee for what little bit of YouTube ad revenue we get from each of these videos that you've given me a new idea about here.
Great. Well, again, I love how people are interested in hunting and learning to do more. I think it's one of the greatest things in life. Teaches you so much about decision making, responsibility, what's real and what isn't in this world. So yeah, I think it's great that the level of interest people are having and realizing the value of good wild meat and what it takes. And any questions, I'm happy that people can reach out. I answer as many as I possibly can.
Yeah, and are you still doing pieces for your blog?
Yeah, I write
you guys had the Orion Chronicles blog there for a while. And I've been on the road so much, I haven't. The only thing I've read in the last 6 months is whatever notes my wife gives me, because those are the highest priority to stay married. But when I get downtime, I used to follow every one of your blog entries, because you'd have some really detailed, step by step, piece by piece, like lists of gear. The one that I always remember is your Alaska caribou one.
Yes.
That was probably the best instructional blog I think I've ever read about how to go and do something that's on your bucket list for a price that's probably less than they thought, and solve or lower a lot of the logistical hurdles, so that I think everyone who read that probably said, "Whoa, I could do that."
Yeah, thank you. That was like a 7-parter. I think I like part numbers 1 through 7. Marketing director was like, "Okay, let's wrap it up." We just switched to a new website. Orion Coolers has just launched. As companies grow and we've gotten time to do a new website, we did. So we have a new Orion Coolers website. There's a new blog kind of summary thing there. We have other people writing them too. It's not just mine. I think one of the problems just of creating a new website is a lot of links get broken to old websites.
Right.
I know the Alaska caribou is being worked on, and that's all being shifted from the old one, which you can't find right now, to the new one.
Okay.
I know I had some requests from people, but I know they're working on it. I don't know if they're up yet, but they're going to be back live on there. And I know I think my very first post for Orion was an East meets West hunting whitetail, backcountry hunting article.
Yep.
It's been transferred because I had some people asking about it. We had it transferred over. Just take some time to change all the images and move all the text and all that.
Right.
They'll all be there, and there's new ones there now. I just wrote my top 3 packing tips 4 Orion coolers were on there to keep you cool. So yeah, the blog stories are there. I gotta start writing.
I subscribe to your YouTube channel. A lot of your YouTube videos are instructional tips also.
A lot of them are, yeah. Especially mine. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just a know-it-all, but a lot of them. I just know it the best. There's so much going on, and one of the ones we just did was like our corner system. There's so much things you can do with just the corner of an Orion. Whether it's a tie-down point, a bottle opener, do you lock the whole thing shut, or do you just lock the base so you can still get in and out of the cooler? That's all in like 4 square inches. So just understanding all the different things you can do. So just because I was involved in that development of that, I can talk about it easily. And we filmed that while we were doing the kayak hunt.
Okay. Well, I want people to get as much information as possible, and I think a lot of times those of us who have information platforms like YouTube and like I have the Hunt Talk website, I'm always worried that I'm getting too close-minded, or I'm feeling like I got to have all the answers on my platforms, and that'll never happen. So I'm always encouraging people, go to these other platforms that have good advice, because they're going to approach a problem differently than I am. And I go and read a lot of stuff and watch a lot of stuff from other people. And I would say my number one place of learning is trial and error. And my number 2 place is from other people, not thinking that I've got it all figured out or that I know it all, because I prove on a daily basis that I don't have it figured out.
Yeah. It's fastest way to learn something is watch somebody who knows how to do it.
That's even faster than messing it up yourself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a world of information. It's out there.
So what's I know you've got the new baby at home. So that if it's like my life was for the first couple of years, things were pretty close to home for quite a while. But you got any big things you or Orion or Jackson Kayaks have going on in the next year?
Yeah, I certainly, we waited till later in life to have our son. So it means I'm pretty set in my ways, and it's going to be harder changes, but it's good. I think one of the first photos I got him home, he was wrapped in a swaddle, and I laid him in a moose antler. I took a photo of him, and one of my boss was like, "That kid doesn't have a chance." So yeah, I got I am taking a hiatus from the trade show season. The hunting shows usually happen in January. I am not attending. I get to stay home with Ash and Barrett to deal with those more important things, which is good too. Yeah. But then, late February, I'll be filming a kayak fly fishing episode in Belize.
Whoa.
With Jim Salmons, who we do the kayak fishing show with. I'm an avid fly fisherman too. I developed our Mayfly kayak just for kayak fly fishing. And when I started with that, we went to Belize on our honeymoon, and I just loved the flats down there, fishing for bonefish and permit and tarpon, and to be able to get the Mayfly on those flats. I don't care if I have to fly one of Ashley's friends from Vermont down or what's going to happen, but there's going to be, I'm going to have a stand-in that week while I'm, we actually had that show scheduled to film in the fall, but Hurricane Harvey hit Belize before it hit Texas.
Okay.
Shut that down. So now I got to make that up, and talking about maybe doing a Quebec bear hunt in May, June. And I don't know for the fall yet. Dad and I got to figure out something. I've still never killed an elk, Randy Newberg.
Well, we've always got ideas about how to get that elk killed there, Damon. So
Yeah.
if we can't get it done this year, we better get it on the calendar, because as old as I'm getting and forgetful and feeble and whatever term you want to put to my incapacities, if you want me to help with that, we better get it done sooner rather than later.
Hey, telling you, I'm ready. I got a new little hunting dog we'll talk about, a new Teckle, a wired-haired tracking dachshund from Europe. He's a handful.
No way.
He's been training all fall on how to track wounded deer.
Really?
He's a cool little dog. Took him to Wyoming. He got to smell some antelope and mule deer. Just as he wasn't working there, he was just on the hunt, and every time we shot something and knew where it fell, let him go smell it and learn. And it's been fun setting mock tracks around the neighborhood. And he'll follow me, finds them every time. I leave every time I thought a pack of moose meat or whatever, I'd save the blood and I'll leave little drips, and been saving deer hooves and walk with them strapped to your boots to leave their scent. And it's a fun little little part of So
how big is that dog? 10 pounds?
He'll be about 22 pounds.
22? Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we have YouTube episodes where we're tracking an animal, or we actually even had a bear hunt in Alaska where I tracked it for hours and we lost it. And it must be very common in Europe to use tracking dogs. Because
yes, that's exactly like a Teckle is just it's not just, but basically in Germany, if you say the word Teckle, it's a dachshund. It's just that's their word, the slang word for dachshund.
Okay. Because
in the U.S., a Teckle is used specifically to describe a usually wire-haired dachshund of European registry and lineage. So like Jaeger, ours is named Jaeger, and the mother was flown back from the breeders down near Atlanta, Von Mountain Creek, and he flew the mother back to Germany to be studied by the father, then brought him back. And the dog's registered with the Deutsche Teckle Club. But very cool little dogs. And in Europe, my great or one of the great grandfathers was a game warden in Austria.
Oh, wow.
And we have like roebuck mounts going back to the 1800s from the family.
Cool.
But there, all of the game wardens are required to have a tracking dog.
Really?
Yeah. So for game recovery.
Yep.
And these wire-haired dachshunds, these Teckles are just known. They're bred for it. They have a little different body shape than American dachshunds. Mm-hmm. They have a little longer legs, not quite as that big barrel-y chest.
Yep.
A little more of a working dog, bearded like a Drathar or a German wire-hair pointer. And they're stubborn dogs and they're bold dogs, but they'll use them there for fox, and they'll use them for birds, and they'll use them for tracking game, like a versatile breed.
Yeah.
So he's been training on that. He's 7 months old now, so I didn't work him this fall really, but next fall hope to have him. There's the Tennessee Blood Trailing Network is a crew in Tennessee listed by county and phone numbers. So if anybody loses a deer, they can call their local.
How cool
tracker
is that?
to help find it. Yeah, and then there's a national group, United Blood Trackers, that does the same thing nationally.
United Blood Trackers. And I'm going to write that down. And the reason that I mentioned the Europe thing is every comment I've ever had about how how hard we had to work to recover the animal, or in the one instance where we didn't, every one of those comments, 100% of them were from Europe, and the people are like, well, you knucklehead, why didn't you bring your dog? Or why didn't you have your neighbor who has a tracking dog? Well, in the States, tracking dogs, at least in the West, are not very common. I would even want to research to make sure they're legal.
Yeah.
I don't know if
it does. It varies by state. Most states have to be leashed. like I mentioned Wyoming, like you can't track with a dog in Wyoming. The way the laws are written, you can't use a dog to aid in big game. So like when I brought Mars to Wyoming, he didn't work, he didn't do anything. We only brought him once we'd already recovered the animal and just let him kind of recreate it. And I was very cautious about that. Like, oh no, I can't use a tracking dog here.
Right.
But it does, and United Blood Trackers is working state by state to look at those laws. I got turned on to them when I lived in Vermont. There was a group up there, and there's a book, Tracking Dogs for Finding Wounded Game by John Giannini, and he's kind of the national. He kind of formed United Blood Trackers and kind of the leading authority in the U.S. But yeah, and it's cool because they don't track based on needing blood. All deer have what's called interdigital glands. It's a scent gland between their hoof pads.
Yep.
And they actually track that as much as anything by footprint. And tech bulls are just known for being stubborn and down low to the ground and being able to fixate on one scent. But yeah, so it varies by state. In Tennessee, you have to call the game warden. You have to use a leash. Some places like Texas, you can use unleashed dogs. So it totally varies by state. United Blood Trackers has done a good job of both looking into state game requirements and lobbying to have recovery dogs legalized. But then also you can see if it is legal in your state, how to get a hold of one of these people if you do lose your animal. Mm-hmm. And they recover thousands of deer every year.
Wow, that's a valuable resource.
It's huge, huge, and there's a lot of breeds that are good for it. The Teckles are known, but people are using bloodhounds and Bavarian mountain hounds and different curs. But yeah, really cool topic. Maybe next time.
Yeah, that would be one to get into.
Maybe we should film that. That would be a cool show.
That would. I'd be interested just because I know how heart-wrenching it is to lose an animal. I've lost one.
Oh, it's
yeah. And every hunter I know who has lost one, they didn't go to the woods that morning and say, I think I'll wound an animal today and go through all the pain and agony of creating a mess. They all feel terrible, just like I did. And it would be cool if there was a way to this network or whatever it is to reduce the amount of loss.
Absolutely,
and the amount of turmoil people have to go through just because of the inner struggles of not doing it, not having the end result you'd hope for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's a terrible feeling, and no hunters ever want to experience it. But if you hunt long enough, it's probably going to happen to you.
Yeah,
I know. I've lost deer. I've lost hogs. It's never a good feeling. I lost an elk. I had never shot an elk. I've never recovered an elk, I should say. I lost a nice bull in Montana, up in the Yak, and
that's some thick country up there.
It's one of my top lists. If I'm ever fortunate enough to meet God, is figure out where the heck that elk went.
Yeah.
Remember back in 2014 when I was up in the Yak? Do you know where that elk went?
Yeah.
So it is a huge resource, and the fact is, with trained trackers, it's amazing what they can recover. So I got one. He's in training, and we'll see how he does. But some great resources out there, and I think it's an interesting thing as more and more people. Some people, whether it's a trophy hunting properties that really heavily managed, and they have clients that expect getting a big buck, and they're using them just to oftentimes recover before coyotes have a chance to destroy the deer.
Yeah.
And that's a really valuable thing. If somebody's playing big bucks for a hunt and they knowingly wound and can't recover a deer, that's a very expensive thing.
Yeah.
But also, if it's public land and you're just looking at from a meat recovery, there's just nothing. I don't see anything bad about having a trained dog used properly on leash to recover an animal that otherwise wouldn't be. I don't know where the bad is in that.
No, I don't either. We need to get that on our list also. So right now, my list with Damon is talking more about blood tracking dogs, somehow doing a kayak big game hunt in the West, getting Damon an elk, and who knows what else I might have forgot in the course of our conversation here.
Yeah, we could combine some of those. I think we could do a kayak hunt for elk in the West. That I'd want to do, but let's leave off the needing a dog for recovery to get that elk.
Okay,
that might carry too much risk. So
okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think we should just not promote being in that scenario, but we should definitely kayak hunt for elk. But I might need to design a bigger kayak for that, because that's a lot of meat.
That would be a lot. Can you imagine having even a boned out elk or quartered out elk strapped to your boat or your kayak?
Oh,
whoa!
It'd be a lot. It'd be a lot. Yeah, especially if if you're on what I call a one-way river. There's rivers you can attain back and that are slow moving or basically stagnant, and you can go back and forth shuttling.
Yeah.
But if you're on a river of any real current, you're not doing that.
No.
So it means it's all going out with you in one shot. So that's where obviously rafts come into play. But from a kayak,
let's do this. Let's first sort out the struggles with a mule deer or a whitetail in the West. And then once we clear a few of those hurdles, we'll do the elk.
Yeah.
That work?
It's on.
Okay.
Hey, it's on.
Oh, well, Damon, I really appreciate you carving out time. I know with your work, with new baby, with all the things you guys got going on, with new websites and stuff, you are a busy man. And I'll be thinking of you when I'm at all these trade shows. I know how much trade shows can take out of a person. So the fact that you don't get to be there and be subjected to it.
To all that.
Yeah.
To not having to bring the flu home to young Barrett.
Right. Oh, I know. Is there any year you've went through all the trade shows where you didn't get some sort of bug?
You know what? I've been pretty fortunate, but I am a bit of I've become kind of a germaphobe at the trade shows, but it's tough. It is tough. I mean, especially we're still pretty small. So like if I'm at a trade show, I'm the one setting the booth up. Mm-hmm. We're the ones tearing it down. Like I remember a couple years ago in ATA in Indianapolis, it was like 4 degrees setting up, like going outside, unloading the booth from the trailer, carrying it into the building, setting it up. That was a cold day. And then you're talking for 3 days straight to people. And last year it was when Clemson won the national championship, so I was up to like 1:30 screaming at a TV. So I had my voice and throat was shot anyway. We didn't. Our boys didn't pull it off this year, but I'm still riding last year's high, so I'm okay. But it's tough. It's just a lot of people and a lot of space, a lot of hand, a lot of flying, a lot of air. Just travel just wears you down.
Yeah.
So yeah, this year, with the I guess bad flu season from what they say, and if I don't have to already expose the little man to that, I'll take it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I'll be there in your stead. I'll be there with my bottle of Purell.
There you go. Thanks, buddy.
I do carry a little dispenser of Purell because I end up in a lot of these, I call it handshake and baby kissing situations. And
sure,
boy, that's like a germ incubator there. And people will look at me when they see me putting Purell on my hands before or after I've shook their hand, and they're like, "Oh, what do I look like? Some sort of big germ?" And I just tell them, I said, I don't want to give you something. I shake so many hands, I'm afraid I might give you something. And they realize that it's nothing personal. It's just you got people from all over the world at these trade shows carrying every bug that I'm sure there is some strain of every virus, every bug you can think of in that SHOT Show building. It's just a matter of whether or not you're going to catch it.
Right. There's been I've been lucky the last couple years. 1 year, I forgot what year it was. I got really, really, really ill at a trade show. And yeah, it's again, all these listeners that are like, look at what happens at ATA and SHOT Show and Dow Safari and all these, big trade shows. Like, God, I'd love to go one day. Just remember, it's not all what you see on Facebook and read online.
I think I would probably reduce some of my contracts if I could get out of having to go to trade shows.
Yeah, some things that happen in Vegas don't stay in Vegas. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah, when we're talking about germs and bugs and influenza and other illnesses. But, well, Damon, I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate it. Let's stay in touch and think about what we can be planning for a hunt. We keep talking about it, but between schedules and other life complications or priorities is maybe a better way. Seems like we don't get it on the calendar, but we got to do it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And there's still also the Randy Backcountry Eastern Whitetail hunt.
I know. That's one I need to do. I just need to go do that some year, and because it intrigues me so much. And then you could kind of be my mentor of how we're going to do that. So.
Yeah, I'm just not carrying those 70 pounds of batteries you fly with. You can find another guy to do that.
Maybe we'll just film it with a cell phone.
Yeah.
Well,
right,
Damon,
Randy.
You have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening. I always remember the folks at Orion Coolers and Jackson Kayaks. They are the real deal. They live it, they breathe it, and they build it. Thanks for listening, folks. 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 Thanks for listening, folks.